As down the glen one Easter morn to a city fair rode I. There armed lines of marching men in squadrons pass me by. No pipes did hum, no battle drum did sound its loud tattoo, but the Angelus bell o' the Liffey swell rang out through the foggy dew. Right proudly high in Dublin town they hung out a flag of war. 'Twas better to die 'neath the Irish sky than at Sulphur or Soldelbore. And from the plains of Royal Meath strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's Huns with the great big guns sailing through the foggy dew. Oh, the night fell black, and the rifles' crack made prettiest Albion reel. Mid the leaden rain 7 tongues of flame did shine o'er the lines of steel. By each shining blade a prayer was said that to Irelanders' sons be true. When the morning broke, still the war flag shook out its pole in the foggy dew. Was England bade our wild geese go, that small nations might be free? But their lonely graves are by Suvla's waves, on the fringe of the great North Sea. Oh, had they died by Pierce's side, or fought with Cathal Brugh, their names we'd kip where the Fenians sleep, 'neath the shroud of the foggy dew. Their bravest fell, and the requiem bell sang mournfully and clear. But for those who died at Eastertide in the springtime of the year, while the world did gaze with deep amaze at those peerless men but few, who bore the fight that freedom's light might shine through the foggy dew. Back through the glen I rode again, my heart with grief was sore, for I parted with those valiant men, whom I shall see no more. But to and fro in my dreams I go, and I kneel and pray for you, for slavery fled. Oh, glorious turn, when you fell in the foggy dew. It's really hard to find the third line of that song, specifically because Marxists tried to aggressively claim the IRA because of James Connolly. And that's actually where you get the Troubles. That's actually where you get the Troubles, if you didn't know. The Troubles was a civil war between Irish Marxists and Irish nationalists. And Theobald Wolfe-Tone, who founded the IRA, would very, very be upset to see that. Rolling in his grave. The Marxists do not get a claim to Ireland. Ireland is a genuine beating heart of Christianity. It was, in the early medieval age, a center of Christian learning. Marxists don't get to forcibly claim that. It's never been your territory, it never will be your territory, and you will die trying. All right. I'm sorry I was kind of running on Bempty yesterday. Everybody has up and down cycles to some degree, and I was smacking my face right into a depressive spell as quickly as possible so I could get it over with, and I did. Got out there and ran even though I felt like crap, and dedicated Saturday to doing good stuff, and paid dividends. The news cycle, it amplifies this, right? Thomas Massey and Trump going to Trump attacking Thomas Massey is upsetting, just to say the least. Send up some prayers for Thomas Massey, because he didn't want this. He just wanted to do what was right by the country, and we all know what it feels like. Most of us know what it feels like. Hopefully all of us know what it feels like to have your principles kind of trip you up sometimes, and straight up, that's the price of being honest. And you know what? God bless him. I appreciate honesty. I always do. I'll probably trust Thomas Massey for as long as he's around, People I love have their eyes glued to the news cycle, and I will always observe things my loved ones do, even the torture nexus. But I'll still advise against it. I think if you could go back to that guy that made interchangeable gun parts and show him the F-35 or a pristine NASA capsule on a dirty, half-broken SpaceX booster, he'd say, never stop making all the guns in one piece. This leads to nightmares. Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare! Gulp. You ever notice that both far right and far left operate on issues of the other side with a hatchet? But they pull out the magnifying glass and tweezers on their own side's issues. If you start noticing that, you'll start seeing it a lot. It's strange how that happens, And while we're on that topic, identity politics is an abject failure. The left tried it. The left tried it super hard over these last 5 years or so. It really, 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 really kicked up with George Floyd. Right, so there were anti-police protests leading. This is the interesting about this. There were police-critical protests leading up to the George Floyd anti-police and abolish the police and white lives don't matter until black lives do stuff. There were police-critical protests, one of which I went to before the George Floyd stuff, and it's wild that that popped up right at the most convenient time to completely muddy the water and distract from the real argument of why is there so much fentanyl on our street? Why is there so much show around policing in our country when it's such a bad, there are much smaller countries with much cleaner streets than America. Well, I guess it's easier when you're smaller and you have more infrastructure, but at the same time, we could do a lot better. America has a really good heart, and it wants to do right by the world. It wants to do right by its own family, and you see it being corrupted time and time again. And it would behoove us greatly if we would try to avoid that. If not on principle, for long-term economic and longevity reasons, health, wealth, and well-being, but it's also trying to be moral too. It's a very good ideal. The right has been attempting identity politics a little bit recently. You can kind of see it actually. If you're not with us, you're against us stuff, and that's not going to work out, guys. Did not work out for the left. It's not going to work out for you. It's only going to make your ability to actually convert people to your particular way of thinking. Maybe far right politics is good for this particular area. Maybe far left politics is good for this particular area. But I don't know. It could have there could be a whole big spectrum. And I know center right and center left politics go good in certain areas, right? So there could be just a whole big spectrum that you're missing the forest for the trees just because you're looking at one particular area, and you want all of America to be a monoculture, which it never really will. When America is a monoculture, America is dead because America spans so many different zones of climate, there's a reason why Americans have specific dialects where depending on where you go, because you literally with the moisture in the air and the elevation and the particular zones and the various other factors and the wobble of the earth, especially up in Alaska, there's a lot of influence the environment has on the way that people behave and the way that people talk and the way that people organize themselves. And so you can never really like, monoculture America. But the people who think and already believe that America is a monoculture, that it always was a monoculture, as the destiny manifested, and that et cetera, and not like three different nations which have multiple cultures in them, seeding like a dozen plus cultures into America. They could probably think that, like, yeah, if we take over Canada, it'll just be America. That'll be easy. What it is, it's about soft timber. It's about soft timber. That's the thing with Canada is like, we straight up want their soft timber, and it's just like, hey, how about leaving it in the ground? Why do you really need so much soft timber? Do you really, really actually need so much soft timber? Do you really actually need it? That's something that people have to ask themselves. Or you think they can just turn a buck off of it immediately when, like, people are using more advanced building materials these days? That's why I said, like, I hope we build some churches with that, with the timber that we're harvesting right now. The logging companies get to go ahead to do whatever they want, because if not, what's it for? It's just gonna burn. It's gonna be turned into wood chips. That's why you get a lot of people obsessing over, like, the whole, oh, put feet first in a wood chipper. Those are the people whose brains are already screwed up from doing things that don't make any sense. They're already destructive. They're already okay with, like, wiping out what's underneath them. And what do you know? Oops, you get these massive wind systems that aren't buffeted at all because all the trees are knocked down. Like, just like a wave is broken a little bit by rocks, a windstorm is broken a little bit by trees. And if you were to flatten everything out or even amplify it with ships when it comes to waves, you get massive issues like slamming into the shores and eroding it real bad. And so you got to put those blocky looking concrete things, those giant concrete pieces down. And it's that simple, that's how things work. None of this, like, that's the Einsteinian thing. Like, energy is, with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and energy is never destroyed. It just transfers into other things, you see. Identity politics is just an abject failure. For instance, broccoli-haired Zoomers can be incredibly annoying, right? But that doesn't give me the right to hate all of them. I saw one driving a huge truck, lifted in the front and squatted in the back. The worst of both worlds, right? The best of both worlds in the worst way. A little broccoli-haired Zoomer driving it. I don't know that guy. Could be a nice guy. Could just be a coward on the road. Afraid of one of these gigantic other trucks slamming into him. Well, he'll have he'll actually have a kinetic boost based on how his, a kinetic buffer based on the fact that his grill is like diagonal upwards, right? I actually thought about that for a while. I'm just like, that is a way that you can take gigantic air dams and make them efficient. You just squat it in the back and lift it in the front so that, like, the car goes underneath you and the force is transferred, like, downward and kind of stops up like a door stopper. Or if a giant truck slams into that, the guy in the truck slamming into that is going to have, like, bouncing inside of his stuff, but, like, it's mainly going to go, like, up and then down, and, like, it'll be absorbed a lot by the shocks. It makes a lot of sense, to be perfectly honest. It's one of the most intelligent lift kit things I've seen in a while. Now, let's do it even crazier. Squat it in the front, lift it in the back. Let's go, baby. Oh. I talk mad trash about everybody, right? But I actually love everybody, and I want them to get stronger, you see. That's the truth. That's the God's honest truth. It's crazy that a lot of people on the left have horseshoe theoried back to the exponential growth myth. They literally think that the economy should never crash, ever. And that the entire purpose of the economy is line go up continuously forever. How does that make any sense at all? That's you're basically, you're a capitalist at that point. And that's the crazy thing is, like, extreme anarcho-capitalism is like horseshoe theory all the way on the back, where you think that, like, this communist egalitarianism, right, can apply in, like, a slope to, or like not a slope, but just a straight integer upwards, right? That's not how life works, buddy. It's not how stuff works. Oh well, I'm sure you all know that. And it's also crazy that people on the right in government haven't gone after Big Pharma. Where you at, Bobby? Come on. I want to see those farmer stocks down too. Merck doesn't get to deserve, they don't deserve a 0.4% increase. They don't deserve to be one of the safe ports in this recession. They don't deserve it. Come on, Bobby. Do your job, man. Do the thing. Like, the thing is, like, if you know anything about RFK Jr., he's actually very much, because of people like Rabbi Shmuley, who very likely killed, was involved in the death of Michael Jackson, which Michael Jackson potentially didn't diddle kids, but that's not for me. I'm not one of those people who peeled through 4,000 pages of Michael Jackson casework and stuff like that. So I'm not the expert on that. He could have, and if he did, that is a completely condemnable issue. But the fact of the matter is they killed him so that they could rake in royalties. Like a super late 27 club, if you will. That's the modus operandi for the music industry. And Rabbi Shmuley was one of his close advisors and friends, and he was likely the person, based on all known evidence, that set Michael Jackson up to overdose. You see. And RFK Jr. knows this guy, Rabbi Shmuley, who sells dildos with his daughter and is constantly fighting with Candace Owens. Candace is great, by the way. She was actually right about Emmanuel Macron's husband. Like, Michelle Obama's a woman. That's just a fact. But Brigitte Macron is very likely a man. Not joking. Seriously. Like, wild stuff. And apparently in their, like, wedding photo, there's, like, a pedophile book. Or, like, a painting or something of the two of them together. Official painting or something. There's, like, a pedophile book in the back. It's insane. Crazy stuff going on in France. I've never liked Macron. People are like, Macron's such a good centrist. Like, no, I'll stick with Trudeau, thank you. I like the silly background of Trudeau. And quite frankly, I think he's one of the least aberrant of the neoliberal leaders, if not the least aberrant of all of the neoliberal leaders, to the point where he basically lapses back into liberalism, right? But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Whew. Rabbi Shmuley and RFK Jr. are very close friends, and it's very unfortunate because if you listen, then if you know, you probably already knew. AIPAC is very likely, their ancestor, the American Zionist Council, is very likely heavily involved alongside the Tampa Mafia. Italians, thanks a lot. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Italians. Thanks, Cuban expats. Thanks a lot for killing our best president. Like, for real. Well, one of our three best presidents. JFK. And RFK. Because they were going to make the Israel lobbies register as foreign agents. Like, everybody else has to. Even our home countries like England, Ireland, France, Scotland. I can understand Germany. I get it. I can understand Italy after World War II being forced to register as foreign agent. But like even Ireland and England even Ireland that is like a constant ally of the United States. Constant, consistent, loving ally of the United States. They have to register as foreign agents. They do like hardly anything bad ever. They're like genuine heroes, especially when you look at the Gaza conflict. Like, they were genuinely putting their lives on the line and very likely died in the protection of the innocent during the Israeli genocide of the Palestinians, which has continued, by the way. They're deploying 400,000 troops. I hate to report it to you, but they're always probably going to do this. They're always going to probably find a way to get the okay from Trump and let loose on this, which is just, it's sad because I really wanted to see those 1.5 million people like actually evacuated before this continued. It's just a mess right now. And that's why I say, please don't stare directly into the torture nexus too much. Mind your mental health. It's moving so quickly. And it's kind of depressing. Especially, I go back and I listen to myself from 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I had all the hope in the world. It's been a kind of depressing couple of weeks, but let's just hope that things get better. Like, I distinctly remember from the first Trump administration that there were big ups and big downs and big ups and big downs and big unexpected decisions. And things that you wouldn't have expected from basically anybody popping off in a somewhat positive way because of Trump's personal take charge and just do it even if it's the unpopular thing to do attitude. I just hope that doesn't backfire. Gotta get that scheming court vizier out of his ear. That's all I'm saying. Not like anybody can do anything about that. One can only hope that God himself intervenes through the human body shutting down and AI not being able to prevent somebody's ketamine-addicted body from like slowly shutting down as they lack the proper sleep that they need. All right, enough of that. Construction is such a grab bag, right? Some contractors are the nicest people you'll ever meet. And some the worst scumbags you'll ever encounter. You know. If you know, you know. I've worked small-time construction, and it's very rewarding and enjoyable. But I also have the feeling that the higher up you go, the more aberrant the situations become. I always wondered why there were so many construction workers that were addicted to opiates. And I have to believe that if you get up to a high-level contracting area, you'll see a lot of opiates being distributed out mysteriously. Police just turning their head, you know, here you go, turn your head. And people working until their body is like shut down and on opiates, you know, being an opiate-addicted sack carrier. Like you see a lot of people, like Big Ed of the chat, you know, who I got into a lot of spats of. The thing about Big Ed is he would just like randomly make something completely up. There are only two people that I knew on Kiwi Farms who did this, Gravemind and Big Ed. And they would just completely make up just absolutely random BS and then propose it. And it's funny because those sorts of things, you just kind of let that mellow. And eventually people will start to dig into it and find out it's BS. But I can't help it. Like, I jumped a couple of times at Gravemind because he would come up with this nasty crap. I'd be like, you can't say that. Hey, man, I've come to think about it, and like, free speech, it means free speech. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword. And eventually, like, you just want to hang around people that are judicious about their note-taking and about their sources and about their confirmation and stuff like that. It's as simple as that. Since getting in more into church, I figured out that that's actually the secret to dealing with a lot of this worldly crap. It's just not worrying about it until time itself vindicates you. So, 4,000 years ago, ancient Israel was a vibrant, thriving greenland. 3,000 years ago, it was deforested severely, and you can thank Solomon for that. And it started to desertify. By 2,000 years ago, it was racked with environmental issues. And that's one of the reasons why Christ came in that particular area and said his particular message and like proposed a very, very important prophecy that both people could tap into if they were aware of what was going on and the history of things, and prevent that sort of mass desertification from happening everywhere. You know, the Arab Peninsula was a thriving green zone 30,000 years ago. Most of the Arabian Peninsula was very green 30,000 years ago. So, been seeing a bunch of literal Kievites online pumping Zionism, right? Wow, how that works out. And by the way, to go back on that other point, it's one thing to chain yourself to a tree for a few acres. It's another to fear real disintegration, and that's something people should really fear, is real disintegration. Moral disintegration, mental disintegration, environmental disintegration, ecosystematic disintegration, societal disintegration. All these things echo out from just the smallest actions, and the smallest decisions can prevent them, and that's exactly why sometimes Christianity is deemed mundane, but is actually incredibly venerable and powerful. Anyways, Sacha Baron Cohen has the perfect Israeli phenotype, right? Narrow eyes, flared ears, high and wide nose bridge, and a small skull with a huge mouth. I call it the snake mouth. It's something that a lot of different people have, but especially like Israeli phenotype, huge mouth on a small skull. Because you know the Germans, they got a big skull. And a lot of us Celts, we have small mouths. He also has something I call Armenian eyebrows. Armenian eyebrows are like semi-thick eyebrows. They're distinctly Caucasian. And by the way, Caucasian does not mean white. That's a misnomer. It's Caucasian is more Khazar, Khazar, Emirati, Azerbaijani, an Armenian, and there's a little bit of Greek there with trapezoid, but like it's mostly Armenian, Caucasian proper, and Khazarian to the north, which the Khazars had a much smaller area, but it's like a historically shifting zone, and it wasn't distinctly Jewish, but it had a lot of Jewish admixture inside of a Tengrist system that would later convert to Islam. And Kazan, which is now part of Russia, is the land of the Khazars, and like distinctly the land of the Khazars is an area stretching out from the Bay of Azov in kind of like a band around, like, I think it was a big river. Yeah. Can't remember the name of the river, though, unfortunately. I should be more up on my geography, my world geography. It was fun. I got a really good score in my world geography class. That was AP. That was when I was sitting with a bunch of seniors as a freshman in high school. I actually became kind of a meme at the end of that, but you don't really want to be a meme because it was more about, like, you know, an oddity, essentially. I learned a lot, though. What's crazy about me as a freshman is I was friends with a lot of seniors. And like when I became a sophomore, I was like really depressed. All my friends left. But when I was a junior, I was super cool. I was like an early senior junior, essentially. I had the mentality of a senior when I was a junior, and I really enjoyed my senior year. I didn't have senioritis at all. Sacha Baron Cohen's very interesting. My wife, Bruno, was a little cringe. The Dictator was very cringe. But Ali G was great. Ali G is gold. That is so funny. I'm pretty sure a lot of the Ali G show is still on YouTube. Really funny. And people say he's MI6. I don't really care, you know. That's a one good example of really, like, good Jewish comedy. But you can also kind of see, like, the times have changed. And it's almost like they're not even allowed to be funny anymore. Like, you know, don't let the goyim laugh because they might, like, die a little less quick or something like that. It seems to be the actual play there. You know, beat down as much as possible. Don't even share the actual talents that you have with the world. Just, you know, commune it up. Like, come on, guys. Yeah, Fetterman just needs to fully embrace his ogre nature and start wearing a loincloth to Congress. That would be epic. That would be a way to own the libs for sure. So here are the religions, right? In order of when they were created. Animism. That's animals, literally like one with the animals and stuff like that. World spirit, Gaia, stuff like that. Ancestor worship, so you got barrows. You got funerary rites like urns and stuff like that. Viking burials, things like that. Ancestor worship is very important. It is integrated in a lot of various religions, like Mary, Mother Mary is everybody's mother, in a way. That's ancestor worship carried over. But there's also a lot of that, like you go back Astarte, stuff like that, way back. And as I said, like you got to study this stuff, and you'll find out just how cool and integrated Christianity is to all the history and tradition of the world. Very interesting. Excuse me. And then you get fetishism. And fetishism is a religion out of Africa that involves the human form being depicted. And it's very likely like a little bit of mix of this and shamanism was where you get the cult of the skull from 12,000 years ago, which is like a Indo-European sort of style. It's very possible that certain African religions were coming up through the other side, and then you had shamanism on the other side. But anyways, back to it. We'll get to fetishism a little bit later when I describe voodoo. Hinduism, which popped up in India like 30,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago or so. Hinduism is really cool, but it's super big. So you have some of the worst religions of all time contained in Hinduism and some of the coolest religions of all time, likely the first monotheistic religions of all history manifesting in the Hindu religion, you see. So you don't get Hinduism twisted as like a monoculture, a monolith. It's like 1,000 different things. And you have Alkaringa in Australia, the dream religion of the Aboriginals. Fascinating little thing, but there's not a lot to study there, unfortunately. In America, you have totemism, which is spirit animals. Spirit animals is a good way of putting that. Spirit animals. It's a form of animism. It's a form of shamanism. And with Maya and Nahuatl religions, they manifested a lot later in Central America. And you also have Inti, that also manifested much later than totemism. So I assume that basically everybody was totemist or animist at one point, and then eventually they manifested different religions, or they could have been totemist and then broke off and remanifested, animal worship. There's some animist religions in the Amazon. So that's very fascinating. And you also have steppe shamanism, like Tengrism and stuff like that. Somewhere in the steppe, lower Siberia, steppe region of Eurasia. Tengrism, Tengri is the Sky Father. So if you hear the term Sky Father, that actually comes from shamanism. Egyptian funerary rites. I'm not sure how long this goes, but this lasted for a very long time. It's a form of ancestor worship. It's a form of animism. You see the animals. You see the funerary rites. It's very fascinating, but it lasted for a very long time. So the Egypt history is huge. You want to just get lost for like a month. Start studying Egyptian history. I was studying Egyptian history back in gifted classes in grade school. And then you get Greco-Roman pantheism, right? And this is a big Greco-Roman pantheism is huge. It's basically like the core of European paganism in general. Early Rome, all of that. They all believed in they all stacked their pantheons together. And the Sky Father, Deus, Zeus, Tengri, that's the dude that sits on the throne in the highest part of the hierarchy of the pantheon, right? And this is where you're starting to get the closer they got to understanding Deus was the closer they got to understanding monotheism, right? So then you get the second or the first official monotheistic religion, which is Zoroastrianism. But before that, you have Abrahamism. So Abraham decided to deny the semi-animist, semi-fetishist, semi-pagan Canaanite religions and form his own stuff. And he did that very early. And they basically just hid out for a long period of time in the mountains. And you actually see when Judaism goes underground for 1,000 years, in the Aksum and Simian region of Ethiopia is big mountainous range. In Rothenburg, it's a big hilly zone, a big mountain. In Germany, like they fled to the mountains frequently, and I think that's integrated into their Noahide legends and other legends and stuff like that. So Zoroastrianism, there's a bit of an eternal flame worship there, but they believed in a semi-dualistic, the wings attached to a singular, right? So it's a semi-dualistic, the wings of light and dark attached to a single creator focus, a fount of all things. And this is why Zoroastrianism bowed to Christianity. But before Christianity, you get Buddhism. And it's fascinating because Buddhism popped off first in like 400, 300 BC. So you're getting close. And it's very likely that Buddhism popped up early and then influenced Silk Road religions to help create Zoroastrianism because of those early monotheistic religions inside of Hinduism that I talked about. Okay, so BC turned to AD, which is the proper way of saying it. Don't ever take anybody seriously who uses the common era terminology. Just don't. It's a good rule of thumb. And like, seriously, if you're scrolling through the internet and you see the I effing love science people, just ignore them completely. Ignore science institutes. Okay, science is everywhere. Everybody is entitled to do science. There's no such thing as an expert in science because science is always wrong. Science is always wrong, and the smartest scientists will tell you that science is always wrong, and it's a good thing. Otherwise, we'd be locked in, and we wouldn't be growing, and there wouldn't be any need for anybody to keep on pushing. Keep it pushing. Keep it pushing. Anyways. I actually forgot Babylonian god king worship that manifested around that region before Zoroastrianism, right? So they have a god king worship like Xerxes and Sargon of Akkad and stuff like that. Not that Sargon of Akkad. So anyways, BC turns to AD, then you get Christianity, and you get Confucianism shortly afterwards. So I'm pretty sure Confucianism was a response to both Buddhism and Christianity manifesting, and Confucianism and Buddhism popped up, and then later Taoism from Lao Tzu, they popped up out of the shamanism of early China. So early China was shamanistic just like in Siberia. And you get Islam, and later you get Sikhism, which is a semi-syncretic but still a new religion of sort of Hindu, sort of Islam, sort of resisting Islam in Punjab, in the like southern Pakistan, northwestern India region. That it just ticked off two countries horrifically by saying that. Anyways, things like Wicca and Rasta would manifest way more recently. So Rasta, which I respect a little bit, it's an Ethiopian Orthodox revival, kind of like Druidry, which is a Celtic revival, modern Celtic diminution, and Voodoo, being a syncretism between Masonic French Satanism and African fetishism. That's why you have voodoo dolls or physical manifestations of a person's likeness, a human being's likeness. And it was literally influenced by Masonic French ideals to form the voodoo of Haiti. It's a pigeon religion, so it's unique to its area as a combination of things. And that's that, you know. I don't think there's any new religions. I mean, you know the history of Protestantism, 30 Years' War, and Martin Luther, and John Calvin, and the Gustavus Adolphus, and stuff like that. You know all about that. I don't gotta tell you that. Are there really enemies in RuneScape called Khazards? And they fight gnomes? What? What? I'd forgotten about that. Gnome's not beating the Slav allegations. Slav's not beating the gnome allegations. But the Khazards are so mean in RuneScape. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like that original RuneScape 2 game was made with lots of history in mind. It's very punny, too. Alright, y'all. Hope you all have a good one. Cheers.